Hello, this is Lucas, and I'm going to talk about Esper Control in Modern. This is a deck that started as a Guillaume Wafatapa deck back in 2013. He's been playing it for medium success. Recently, he did very well on Magic Online with it, and he played it at a Grand Prix as well, which caught my attention. As everyone knows, Modern is usually a format that doesn't favor control decks, which means that if you can build a good control deck and you can attack from an unexpected angle and have good success with it. I don't think Esper Control is that deck yet, but it could be. And part of my reasoning for making the videos and is to put the deck out there so more people can play it and we can have more feedback and try to build a better deck together. So metagaming wise, there are some cards that I feel are very well positioned here. Supreme Verdict in particular is super strong right now, just because a lot of the aggro linear decks they're based heavily on putting creatures on the board fast, and if you can get Supreme Verdict as a 2-for-1, they usually don't have a good follow up, right? The thing about decks such as Infect and Death Shadow aggro and Affinity to some degree is that they usually have 16 haymakers, like 12 to 16 haymakers, and the rest of the deck are just support cards trying to make the haymakers as good as possible. So in fact needs to have one infected creature on board. Death Shadow Zoo the same, they need to have a creature and they will mulligan a hand without a creature usually. Affinity has, some 16, 18 good cards such as Cranial Plating that they also need to mulligan into. So if you can deal with one of those cards and you can follow it up like with any big play, any big card advantage play, you can beat them. So my plan against those decks is actually to disrupt them before turn 4, and I'm doing that with Path to Exile, Inquisition of Kozilek, and Logic Knot. The original Guillaume of Tapa deck doesn't have Inquisition, it has more card draw and more conditional counter spells, but I think this is a necessary step to disrupt those decks. So I'm trying it. I think it's a good innovation. Olivier Ruel played in a Grand Prix, and I'm incorporating that as well. Logic Knot, like if I only wanted a card to interact in the first 3 turns, I would not play Logic Knot. I would play Manlik. But I think Logic Knot is good enough in the early games and is a hard counter spell later in the game. And that part is actually important when you're trying to beat decks such as Escape Shift or Ad Nauseam, where you do need a hard counter later on because you don't have a fast clock and you eventually have to deal with everything they draw. So I have those 11 cards, then I have Snapcaster to play them again, and I think that leads me to a lot of free wins. There was a Grixis control deck last year that would play both Inquisition and Snapcaster, and it would win a lot of games just by playing one mana spell, Snapcaster, one mana spell again, and then like any big four mana card. Like if you can do that and follow with card advantage, you're going to be super ahead. So the deck usually is trying to play 2 different game plans. You're either playing for Supreme Verdict, or you're playing to cast 2 discard spells. Against Saga decks, you're playing the removal game, and against combo decks, you're just playing like Esper Charm, Flashback Esper Charm, or just multiple Inquisitions of Kozilek. That's usually good enough. On decks such as Red Green Valakut, they also don't have a lot of haymakers. So you can usually put them in a position where they have to top deck to beat you, and then you're just sitting on 1 or 2 counter spells or 1 or 2 card drawing spells, and that's usually good enough. My mana base, I'm running 25 lands. It's designed in a way that I have 14 black untapped on turn 1, 14 blue untapped on turn 1. I have 18 white sources on turn 4, and I have 22 blue sources on turn 4. So I can cast all my spells in times. The mana base has been quite consistent. One thing that I could improve to make sure I have more land drops would be to play more cheap card draws, such as Think Twice. But I don't think the format favors sitting back and doing nothing too much. So actually, for my card drawing, I'm running Esper Charms, which again, the discard mold is important part of our plan against Kobo, but against mid-range decks, you can just draw 2 and you're gonna be fine. I'm running 1 Ancestral Vision and 1 Think Twice. The reasoning being it's bad to draw 2 of them, but if I draw 1 of each, I'll be fine. Think Twice is great, but it does cost a lot of mana. Think in a game that you draw 2 Think Twices, that would be 10 mana to cast them both. It's a bit too much right now. And then I have my X spells to close the game. Those could be planeswalkers. I'm not entirely sure if I'd rather have an X spell or a planeswalker, but since I have like 7 hard counters I want to play later on, and I want to keep my mana up for Esper Charm and that's Step Cards to the Mage, I've been enjoying having instant speed threats or instant speed high impact cards. And for the sideboard, these are all standard cards. Condemn is just to make sure I can beat linear decks like Snail and Coughing, although I think I'm slightly favored against them. If I have access to Condemn on the sideboard, then I'm heavily favored. Stony Silence, I would always play one. Right now, Affinity is the most popular deck on Magic Online, so the second is a no-brainer, and it also has implications against Trump and Ad Nauseam, which can be a bit difficult. Lingering Souls is not a high-impact card, so there is a good argument for just not playing it. It, however, does come in against many different decks, so I'm not comfortable cutting it. It comes in against Affinity to deal with their manlands. It comes in against Infect, just because I need more cheaper cards to play. And it comes in against other Lingering Souls decks, so I can trade. It comes in against Liliana decks to put pressure on her. I can also put in against slow combo decks, just to have an extra clock. So it does many things. Just it's never particularly great at one function. Burn can be one of the most difficult matchups, so I'm running 3 dedicated hate cards. Timely Reinforcements is the most impactful card, but Collective Brutality is also pretty good, and it's cheaper on the curve, and I can also bring it in one more against combo. Gideon Yura and Elspeth are just to diversify my threats, make sure I can kill in a reasonable time, and they're both really good against Panther Eldrazi. So I really like having access to them on the sideboard, but again, they're not a critical part of the plan. And if you would be to move into the main deck, you would have an extra couple slots. And then, Tatsu's Negate, just to make sure I have a good plan against combo and control. And Spell is a bit the same, and it also is a critical part of beating Burn. If you can spell their Skullcracked effect and play a Timely Reinforcements, you're going to be super ahead, and that's actually what you're aiming to do post-board. As far as matchup goes, again, the aggro-linear decks, I think they're reasonable matchups. If I playtest more and I feel I need to get to be even better against them, I could cut some card drawing and just play more removal. That's mostly a tuning issue. It's not an extra structural disadvantage or advantage for either deck. Just I can beat them as long as I want to. Uh, Burn, as I said, is a difficult matchup, which is why I have a dedicated sideboard. I could use more sideboard slots if I think it's too popular. Right now, it's not too popular, just average popular. Decks like Bantro Eldrazi and green black decks like Ebzen and Jund, I feel like I'm very favored against them, and I feel like being favored against them is one of the reasons why Esper Control should be good in the metagame. I just have like too many card draws, too many high impact cards. Bantro Eldrazi is a deck that essentially 30 mana sources, so they top deck very poorly. If you can just play Supreme Verdict and then remove their follow-up trap, you're gonna win. And they don't have a good sideboard against you as well. Um, Decks like Red Green Valakut and Ad Nauseam, you're just hoping your hard card draw, your hard counter spells, are good enough against them, and they usually are. They don't have many must counter spells. It's just air and like 7 cards that you need to deal with on average. So again, that's a good reason to play hard counter spells right now. And then there are random decks that play from different angles, such as Trom and Dredge. I think they're both very difficult matchups. Trom you can sometimes beat, just because if you can counterspell their threat or just play multiple Esper Charms, you can steal a game, but it's hard to beat them in a best of 3. And Dredge is basically impossible. I would have to dedicate many sideboard slots for it, in which case I would beat them, but right now, sideboard space is at a premium in modern, and I don't think I can afford too many slots. So that's it for a rundown of the deck. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer in comments, and I hope you play the deck.